what happens when people start to not respect the law and actively try to resist it? What you get is violence and rebellion, and that is happening a lot with particularly with like immigration law. So what we see is that there's lots of violence against immigration ICE officers. We can see that with the example of the one in September of this year, where someone fired on Dallas, fired on a ICE facility in Dallas, and ended up killing two people. And we can also see that with the fact that a lot of protests are going on, and they're actively impeding ICE immigrations. Now that's against the law. It's goes under impeding justice, or impeding justice, and it's against the law. And yet nothing ever happens. So we get massive rebellion and stuff like that. And another major incident basically happened yesterday. Happened yesterday, and it happened in Chicago. And it's going to be a smaller section of Chicago. It's not going to be downtown, but still, it happened in Chicago. And that's one of the major cities where there's people are trying to resist ICE agents in the first place. The governor has actually said that he will do whatever he can to actively fight against ICE agents. Now that rhetoric ends up like incentivizing like violence against ICE agents, but still, you can see that also throughout like other cities throughout the U.S. You can see that in New York with Mondami saying he'll do as much to stop ICE, and then you can also see it in Portland, Oregon, L.A., and other major cities. And they're all in blue cities too. And with this major incident, it just adds on to the violence that keeps on happening to ICE officers. So let's watch the video.
Tonight, growing questions after another round of violent clashes in Chicago between federal agents and community members outraged at President Trump's immigration crackdown. This video appears to show Border Patrol agents apparently deploying flash grenades and tear gas on a crowd of people in the predominantly Mexican Little Village neighborhood. You can see one woman then throwing an object back. In another video, you see Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bavino appearing to hold a gas canister, commanding people to move. DHS today writing in a statement, Border Patrol was conducting immigration enforcement operations when an unknown male driving a black Jeep fired shots at agents and fled the scene.
Yeah, this keeps happening, and it happens over and over and over again. Yet we don't know the person. He hasn't been arrested. Additionally, the other people blocking the thing haven't been arrested. Now, I think that a lot of these people that are actively blocking and protesting the ICE immigration things should be arrested because they're blocking actual duties of the federal officers. So if someone's like trying to hide someone that's an illegal immigrant, they should be arrested. And if someone's like trying to if they're standing in front of the car and they're stopping the ICE officers from getting to a place where they need to actually enforce the law, then that person that's actually blocking the car is going to be impeding justice. And here's the federal law with it. So you get the obstruction of justice charge, and for a general obstruction of agency proceedings, you should get around 5 years in jail. And yet none of that's happening. Trump's not done it, even though he said he would. He would basically try to arrest put as many people in jail, as many people that are illegal immigrants in jail, and try to arrest as many people as possible when they're being violent or whatever. Yet he's not been doing that. And that's one of the things I'm disappointed in Trump about. I don't think he's gone far enough in that. As people that are obstructing justice, they're actually breaking the law. And this was and they're obstructing a law that was voted on by 50% of the population. Over 50% of the people ended up voting for Trump. He had a major popular vote victory as long as also with an electoral victory. And so he has a popular mandate. And yet, the people that are actively protesting ICE and obstructing justice here are against that. So the left, which has always been saying that democracy is incredibly important, and Trump is a threat to democracy. They're the ones that are actively impeding the democratic process right now, because the democratic process basically said that basically voted for the law of enforced immigration and tougher immigration laws, and yet they're obstructing the execution of those laws. So they should be arrested. Additionally, another reason I think they should be arrested is because it fits the idea of civil disobedience. Now, in Civil Disobedience by David Henry Thoreau, which is the original person that ended up creating like the theory of civil disobedience, which was later used by Martin Luther King in the civil rights movement, was that you should protest an unjust law, and then if you get arrested, you should basically accept that you're being arrested, because if you're basically saying if there's an unjust law, you're supposed to protest against it, and then if you protest against it, if you protest against it and you get arrested, then then the right, I forgot the particular quote, but it's basically saying if the law is unjust and you fight against it, you are the right place for the person that believes the law is unjust is jail, because they're actively fighting against it. And it's basically saying he's basically trying to respect the law, and if you're breaking the law and you think the law is truly unjust, then you should also go to the place where other people that are broken that unjust law should go, which is jail. So basically, under civil disobedience, that this is also true. And additionally, Martin Luther King also said that he has the highest respect for the law, and he said, I think it was particularly in the Birmingham letter to the clergyman from Birmingham jail, basically said he had the highest respect of the law, and him being in jail for protesting civil rights shows that he has the highest respect for the law. And because he didn't actively try to resist being arrested. So these protesters actually don't fit under the agreement for civil disobedience, because they actively tried to not get arrested. So, and they actively fight officers. So they don't actually fit under the theory of civil disobedience. So, and additionally, that means that they're not like fitting the definition of like a true protest. So, that basically is showing that they're not actually like, they're not actually, they're just breaking the law for breaking the law, and they shouldn't be doing, and we should arrest them for that. Additionally, people that are violent, first of all, people that are violent and throwing things at officers, not just shooting at them, but throwing things, that's also considered assault, and you'd also get prison time for that. Even though, and it would be assault of a federal agent, federal officer, and those people should also particularly go to jail, because they're actually committing a crime separate from just obstruction, and yet they're not arrested. If you see people, you see in the riots in LA, and you see other protests, people that are like throwing bricks and throwing items at officers, they're not getting arrested, yet they should be. Because again, they're committing violent acts, and those violent acts, basically, they deserve to be thrown in jail for those violent acts. Yet Trump doesn't, and I really, really wish he did, because they're actively impeding the law and obstructing it, and also they could potentially, even though ICE people have like protective gear or whatever. Still, if someone threw a brick at someone and they hit them in the right place, you can still kill someone. If you hit them in the head, just right, you can still kill them. So they should still be put in jail, because that's grievous bodily harm. So, and yet Trump doesn't do that, and I wish he really did. Additionally, with this, you also can see clearly.
Police saying they
Never mind.
responded to the calls of shots fired.
Also, with the fact that there's people arrested, you clearly see that these protests are clearly and somewhat, in a way, have some sort of violent component to that. And that's one of the reasons that Trump ended up calling Antifa a terrorist organization. Now, under the law, you can't. There's no designation for like domestic terrorist organization, but there's still groups considered a what is it? Foreign terrorist organization. If you look at Antifa, that they have like groups outside of the U.S. You can see the protests in Paris, in particular. You can see the people flying the Antifa flag there. So, and it is organized, although loosely organized. It is organized. So, so yeah, you can also see that clearly that there's some sort of militant wing to these protests, and those militant wings in particular should be arrested. And I'm just, yeah, I just want Trump to arrest everyone more. Now let's continue to actually listen to the video.
Also writing, there are no reports of anyone struck by gunfire. DHS.
That's good. That's really good. Since we don't want anyone to die, but there's it's actually kind of rare for no one to be struck by gunfire, because there was like a crowded group of people around the ICE agents, and so I'm actually a little bit surprised by the fact that there was no one shot, and that's great. So hopefully no one else like injured or whatever. No one got struck, but there could still be like injuries from like people trying to run. So hopefully there's none of that, but I bet there is, and it's sad, but whatever. Let's move on.
Paint can and bricks were also thrown at Border Patrol vehicles, and the shooter and vehicle remain at large. Today's clashes are the latest tied to President Trump's Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago that have led to dramatic scenes on the streets. A federal judge on Thursday issued a preliminary injunction limiting federal agents from using riot control weapons like pepper spray and tear gas, writing the government's previous accounts of these protests and uses of force are simply not credible.
That's false. You can clearly see that there's example just right here. There's shots fired, people throwing cans at ICE agents, throwing bricks, actively impeding justice. Well, there's no so that actively like a lot that should, like, under the law, if someone's impeding justice, you gotta arrest them and try to get them out of the way so you can actually do your job as a federal officer. And so this judge is clearly biased, because there's been like histories of violence. You can see it in LA when there was the LA riots. You can see it again when people were protesting outside of ICE facilities, where they ended up popping vehicle tires and throwing stuff at ICE agents and throwing paint and everything. And you can see it here. There was just a video. In this video, they were just said they were throwing stuff at ICE agents. So they actively are using violence, and so this judge is clearly biased, as this is blatantly not true. And yeah, it's just blatantly false.
DHS says they will appeal the order. But tonight, federal enforcement now searching for a suspect after yet another violent day.
Shaq joins me now near the scene in Littleville.
Yeah. So, and the thing is, another issue with this is that there's a lot of like super biased judges that are out there. As you can just see by that other judge right there. That there's clear examples of violence and force used by protesters, and additionally, they're actively impeding investigation, breaking again the law of they're obstructing justice. So, you should be allowed to use tear gas and actually arrest those people, because they're actively using violence and breaking the law. So there's so many biased judges. Additionally, you can see that with you can also see that with the not allowing of National Guard to be deployed, because we can clearly see that there's like violence against ICE agents here, and a lot of the judges are saying that there isn't, and that's one of the main reasons that they're saying that the National Guard shouldn't be deployed. They're also saying that they don't have any, that only like state level, like the governors can call in the National Guard, but that's not true. You can send into the National Guard to protect federal property and federal agents, and that's what the National Guard's being used for by Trump. So the judges are clearly biased, and because he's following every law that there is, and he's actively trying to enforce the law, yet these judges are actively blocking that. They're actively trying to impede justice, basically. So I think somehow we should find a way to impeach the judges. Since even though Congress can do that, sadly we don't have enough votes there either to impeach the judges. So that's too bad. We should find a way to somehow remove these clearly biased judges. I don't know how, because we don't have enough votes for like an impeachment. And additionally, Congress is so freaking slow that they wouldn't even, that impeachment would take forever anyways. So, yeah, I really wish we could find a way to get like Congress to move a lot faster. And I talked about that, particularly like getting rid of the filibuster. My video about that, but anyway, so the judges are clearly biased, and yeah, Trump just needs to really just speed up and start arresting all these people that are impeding justice and being violent, as they don't fall under under civil disobedience. They considered it the highest respect to the law, and that they should be arrested and be put in jail because they broke the law, and it's basically showing high respect for the law and whatever. So still, they should be arrested, and that's not happening. And that's one of the things I particularly dislike about Trump right now. He's not gone far enough, particularly on this issue. And I really wish he could do that. So, yeah, just... And also, why are some people even defending the people that are violent against, that are being violent? I don't understand why people are defending people that are being violent and blocking federal officers at all, because there was a popular mandate, and Trump had that popular mandate by the over 50% of the vote that he got, and he has that mandate. So why are people not against this? You didn't see the right protests. You did see January 6th, which that's not good. But you didn't see the right actively impeding laws under Biden. So why is the left doing this? And yeah. So overall, just I really wish that Trump should just just arrest more people, basically, and he doesn't, and it's sad. Also, additionally, I think another thing that would actually make it easier for more arrests and more enforcement of law is that if we somehow require all people of law enforcement to actually enforce laws that people break. For example, currently, like, local officers can ignore legal immigrants and stuff like that. They could not report them to actual ICE agents. But if we somehow find a way to require local law enforcement to actually enforce that law in particular, then that would also be great, because then we have more numbers, and it's easier to actually end up finding all of the illegal immigrants and then deporting them. So I actually honestly wish for a lot more clear communication between like our different law enforcement agencies at different levels. Yet that doesn't happen, and that's mainly because of politics. But anyway, so overall, I just want Trump to be more strict on on the protest and the legal immigration when he's not strict at all right now. So